let's just jump into it. Michigan State falling to their rival Michigan, 24-17 is the final score. Just jumping up and down the box score. Nate Carter had a night, 118 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Aiden Childs, 189 yards and a touchdown, 17 for 23. Just kind of an okay night for Aiden Childs. Didn't really air the ball out too much. He did have a fumble on a strip sack. You also had Nate Carter receiving yards, a couple of catches for 56 yards. Nick Marsh had 4 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. Look, here's my takeaway. All right. Michigan State played about the kind of game that they have been basically playing most of the year, which is consistently inconsistent on drives. You had an opening drive, which got you all the way to the end zone, and you get nothing out of it. You miss a 25-yard field goal, which it wouldn't have been the difference in the game overall, but it certainly shifted the momentum to where, now Michigan is not playing from behind. They're playing with a tie, and you ended up stopping them anyway. But, teams get more desperate when they're playing from behind, and that's where mistakes can happen. But Michigan basically played mistake-free. They didn't turn the ball over. They didn't commit a single penalty. They didn't like Michigan or Michigan State. I think basically for either one of them to win, there had to be no catastrophic mistakes for either team. And I guess you could say that for most games. But for these teams that had been up to that point playing football full of mistakes, they needed to be able. The team who ended up making the least amount of mistakes was going to win the game. And that was Michigan. They played probably the best game they played all year. Like, no turnovers. Again, no penalties. They were pulling out the trick plays. Davis Warren, I thought, was cool, calm, and collected. I thought he played a really good game. 13 for 19, 123 yards and a touchdown. Donovan Edwards, 1 for 1. Maybe there's a quarterback controversy after all. They didn't really run the ball too much. I mean, Alex Orji is your leading rusher. But he was still held to 64 yards. Granted, he also had a touchdown. But it wasn't like Michigan offensively just had their way with Michigan State. They kind of ran away with it a little bit near the end there with, you had the trick play to touchdown to Colston Loveland. He had a couple of touchdowns. I said it going into the game. He's going to play on Sundays. He's one of the best tight ends in college football right now. And as far as the game goes, there was some, I would say, harshness with Jonathan Smith. And the question I have then is this. Was it Jonathan Smith getting out-coached, or was it Jonathan Smith getting out-talented? And it's not mutually exclusive. Do I think he should have had a few more deep ball shots in this game? Yeah. I mean, Nick Marsh, he really didn't get targeted a whole lot. I think it would have really shifted the game if Aiden Childs could just let air the ball out to Nick Marsh. He did have the one deep shot to Montorie Foster Jr., and I thought, okay, look, I know we're running the ball pretty effectively. Nate Carter having a heck of a game, and Aiden Childs, you want to keep him sort of insulated. You don't want him to have to be your entire offense. But the offensive line for Michigan State is just not there. I mean, Aiden Childs had about half a second to make a decision. So I don't know what the game plan could have been and what individual play calls I would have taken back. I mean, in that first 4th and goal where you ended up having to settle for the field goal that you ended up missing, the not calling timeout and getting the delay of game penalty, that bothers me. I've said this before. Teams, when you have a timeout available to you, you should just never have a delay of game. Like it should be, I don't know if this would be an actual rule change that would apply in any real way, but I wouldn't mind that if you had the option as a team that gets penalized to either take the 5 yards or keep the yards, but you lose a timeout. I know the game already favors the offense, but I'm just saying, because it's just so stupid. How do you I'm looking at the play clock watching the television, right? You have to know what the play clock is when you're on the field. If it's anywhere at 2 and your team is not set, hey, ref, over here, timeout, 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 timeout. And it's not like they can say, oh, we didn't see you. It's still going to be a penalty. We have cameras everywhere. All they got to do is look at it and be like, oh, okay, Smith was calling TO. That's fine. Called timeout at such and such time. you do that. You maybe, you come out of the huddle, maybe have a play lined up, you score, you're up 7 or 6-0 in the early game. And then you go out, you have them 3 them out. You can potentially go up 14-0 in the first quarter and just suck the air out of the entire stadium. Obviously, that didn't happen. And after Michigan State scored that initial touchdown, they just decided, you know what? That's enough offense for us. And I mean, like, it's one of those things where if you look at the team stats, if I were to just to tell you what the total team stats were for Michigan State, you would have thought Michigan State would have won by double digits. 352 total yards to Michigan's 265. They had the 1 turnover to Michigan's none, granted. They had 18 first downs. TOP, Michigan State, 37 minutes and 5 seconds. Michigan, 22:55. Michigan State had the ball for more than half of the game and scored 7 less points. You can't do it. You can't do it. Michigan took advantage of the opportunities that were given to them. Michigan State did not. I mean, it was like going back and forth between which team wants to lose this game more. You had Michigan missing the extra point. And then Michigan State fumbles it, gives them the lead at the half, and all of a sudden the juice is flowing for Michigan. All right, we can win this game. We can lock this game up. We get the ball back, right? We can have a chance to really open this one up wide. And Michigan State just didn't stand up to it. They didn't meet the task, right? They didn't meet the moment. Now, all of that leads into this. So, at this point, the investigation's done. But, end of the game, Michigan has already won the game. They're in victory formation. Michigan State fails to convert on the 4th down. That would have potentially set up a touchdown. You're never going to know. That could have tied the game, assuming they made the extra point. Michigan ends up walking the game off with an Alex Orji first down run. After the game, they go to knee it, and I'll just read directly from the ESPN article. Following Michigan's final kneel down of 24-17 win, Michigan State defensive lineman Anthony Jones and Michigan tight end Colston Loveland engaged in a, quote, scuffle, bringing both teams to the middle of the field as the clock expired. Video appeared to show Michigan running back Khalil Mullings and other Wolverines engaged with Michigan State personnel who were on the turf. Amidst the confrontation, student-athletes from both teams were on the ground and surrounded by so many individuals that both players were completely obscured from view, the Big Ten said in a statement Tuesday. The video review was inconclusive to whether individual discipline was appropriate for anyone in the immediate vicinity of the 2 players who were on the ground. Blah, blah, blah. Michigan coach Jerome Moore on Monday called the post-game skirmish, quote, unacceptable. He said any potential discipline will be handled internally, adding, quote, that's not how we represent the University of Michigan, the block M, or the winged helmet, so we'll take care of that. That will never happen again. Hats off to Jerome Moore. I thought that was an excellent statement. When I read that, I want to say it was the morning after, I was like, okay, that's incredibly professional. He's absolutely right. These guys, whoever was that wrong, and I think it's both Colston Loveland and it's, anybody who was involved in the skirmish, do whatever it is you got to do. And I don't know that it is going to be acceptable to me, but if at least you're putting out publicly that this sort of thing is not acceptable, because it's not acceptable. I mean, it's like, this is the 3rd year in a row where it feels like we're doing this sort of thing, or where it just seems like we're just sort of, it's beyond, like, this is getting to the point where it's just, guys, it is just football, right? Like, this should not, I'm not saying you got to, like, be best friends with other players, but, like, we can't have at the end of every single game Michigan and Michigan State players trying to beat the hell out of each other. We just can't do it. And then moving on to what Michigan State's head coach said, I think this is the quote that is, let me see if I can find it. No, this is a different, let's see. Here we go. So, Smith was not coaching MSU in 2022, but said of his first road experience in the Michigan State rivalry, quote, there's a genuine dislike. You could feel that from the get-go of the pregame, from the crowd to the place, and then sharing the tunnel. That's unique in a rivalry. Is there any other extra to this article? I thought there was more. Well, all that is to say, I think this whole skirmish is just ridiculous. I mean, like, I'm glad that there was nothing huge had to come from this. The Big Ten obviously coming out and saying that nobody is going to get suspended or arrested. I do find it a little ironic that when a Michigan player is at the center of a post game fight, it's like, okay, let's get the Big Ten investigated. Nobody's gonna get hurt. It's not a big deal. But when a Michigan State player does it, it's like, oh, we gotta get the CIA involved. We gotta get the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, get everybody. Get every internal. We're gonna get the National Guard in. We got to get these players to Guantanamo. Basically, I do find that a little funny. But here's the thing. I think that this is a little bit of a wake-up call for Jonathan Smith. Now, do I think it would have been better for him to win the game? Yes, of course. It's always better to win than to lose. That's just common sense. However, in this particular game, I think he came at it with just you don't quite understand a rivalry until you're in it. And I think this can spark something to where, you had the Colston Loveland, I think stupidly, and he admitted as much, bring up the little brother thing. It's like, we're talking about like 20 years ago at this point, like, or 15 years ago when Mike Hart said that, but like, you're still doing the same thing. Okay, fine. But all this is to say is that Jonathan Smith needs to be able to turn it on for next year. And frankly, he needs to be able to turn it on for the rest of this year. He can't let, this spiral into anything more, right? You got Indiana next week. That's not going to be an easy game. But Michigan State has played well enough to win a lot of games that they end up losing. Now, Indiana is probably the best team that they've played since Oregon. But Indiana is coming into the game a little hurt, I believe. I think their quarterback is injured. At best, if he plays, he's going to be playing, coming off an injury. And Michigan State has shown some ability to move down the field. It's just a matter of finishing those drives. And I don't know if Michigan State just doesn't have the talent for it. I think that's pretty much my assessment. They just don't have the guys in the room yet, especially on the offensive and the defensive line. And that's going to win you and lose you games. Like you managed to sneak a win against Iowa. That, there was a point at somewhere during the season where I said, Aiden Chiles is probably going to win you a game that you don't expect him to win. Maybe it was that Iowa game. Maybe it'll be this Indiana game. I don't know. But I have no harsh criticisms of Jonathan Smith other than, maybe you could have thrown the ball a little deeper. Maybe you could have had a little more passion in this game. I really think that this could, turn some of the gears in him and sort of unlock that rivalry spirit of this game. I mean, these teams, clearly they don't like each other. Clearly these players, they do not like each other. The fans, I can tell you that as much. As someone who's experienced the onslaught of Michigan fandom, we do not like each other. And that's, you could say it's bad for sports or whatever you want to say. It just is. Like, they don't like each other. They don't want to like each other. So Jonathan Smith's got to be able to unleash that fire in his players for next year. Because, look, 3 years in a row and is not his fault because he wasn't here for the first couple of years. But you can't, as a program, lose to your rival 4 straight years. It'll get to the point where you're just like modern day Auburn. And it's like, is it even a game? I know people show out for the Iron Bowl, but does anybody even expect anything in the result? At least in this game, Michigan State put up enough of a fight to where you're like, okay, couple things go MSU's way this way. Plays don't work out for Michigan. This game could flip, right? I think even the hardest Michigan fan, the most go blue all the way Michigan fan would agree. This was not some like dominant win by the Wolverines. We'll have to see. We're on to Indiana. I think that's basically all we got to go to is just move on. And you got the Hoosiers. It's probably going to be much harder. But, yeah, tough loss. But I guess I can't come out from it feeling like absolutely awful and want to jump up and down and scream. I can't do it. I'm not so upset in the loss that I'm just done with Jonathan Smith or Aiden Chiles or any of these guys. I can't. The team is not there where it's supposed to be, but they're still a 500 team, and they got a chance to be 500 in the conference next week. is what it is. Hi, it's me again. If you enjoyed what you just saw, hit the like and subscribe button. We do live shows every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Hope to see you there.